Again, remind those that haven't done so, could please sign in the chat, your name and your community. That becomes the official record for the meeting. Maybe we could just take a moment of silence at this time for whatever your faith tradition, say a little prayer for peace in the world. We live in a really challenging time, and also to remember our men and women who are serving from all our communities to keep the peace. Thank you, everybody. Our first item on the agenda, I guess, would be the discussion action of the minutes. Do we have a motion or any amendments to the minutes? Anybody?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Okay, we have a motion. Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Hands
Aye.
up. Aye. Any opposed? Very good. Next item on the agenda, we have a special guest today, and I'm pleased to welcome Tom McGee. Tom has a long history of public service, serving his hometown of Lynn, state representative, state senator, mayor for a term. And I've come to know him. He's a good man. He served the state senate, heading up transportation. He understands this issue as well as anybody. He understands the challenges we face, and I'm thrilled that the governor chose him to lead the board, particularly with the challenges we have coming up and his relationship with the state legislature. No pressure there, Tom, Mr. Chairman. But the floor is yours. We appreciate you joining us this morning.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the kind words. It's been great getting a chance to work with you in numerous roles. So look forward to continuing as the chair of the board. And I want to say hello to everyone. And I want to thank the governor for having the faith in me to take this on. And as you said, we have faced many challenges that we've talked about, excuse me, at numerous board meetings over the last year and a half plus that I've been on the board and now in the role as chair. But we have, I think, made some really good progress. I'd like to talk to that a little bit, and then I think speak a little bit to the challenges, but more importantly, what kind of opportunities we face if we can continue to move forward and make the progress we've started. Tom, with your help, Mr. Mayor, and the other board members, and with the GM Phil Lang, really leading the agency in a direction that's proving really positive. It's an exciting time and a challenging time to be in this role. So I look forward to it. And just a few of the, I think, important pieces of progress we made, I think particularly with the slow zones and taking that on this year in a way that hasn't been done before, doing shutdowns and doing buses and really inconveniencing everyone across the system for a period of time. But the results far outweigh the hopefully people's disruptions that went along with those closures. And the thing that really struck me when the GM talked about it a couple of meetings ago, maybe last month, in terms of the work that went on in 163 days of 24/7 work to really take on not only the slow zones, replace tens of thousands of feet of track and ties and doing all of the work that had to be done to bring the every line up to speed, which will be done by the end of the month. I think it's the first time since the 1980s that all the lines have been slow zone free. But that work was accomplished in, at least at the time when he made the comment, 163 days. And it still blows me away. If we were doing it the old way, it would have taken 40 years to get that kind of work done. So thinking outside the box, getting the system to a place where people expect it to be, and improving continuously. And I know the Red Line is looking to improve that speed even more dramatically over the next month or so in terms of the ability to bump it above what's typically been the speed in the past, is really, I think, reflective of the kind of decision making, but more importantly, what we need to do to get the riders back in place, but keep the focus on the riders and the people who use it, and make it the kind of system that we all are expecting to get on when we get on it. I've been taking the Blue Line in, and I was on with someone else that I know pretty well, 21 minutes from Wonderland to Government Center, which reflects pretty much every day. And that's what is really going on across the system. And it's hopefully will reflect a ridership increase. And as members of the advisory board, it's important that we continue to talk about the difference between sitting in traffic, which would take me an hour and 20 minutes at least from Lynn, versus 21 minutes on the Blue Line once I'm able to get to the Wonderland station. That's a dramatic change, and also hopefully an opportunity for us to grow the ridership back to where we've headed in the past. We've been able to hire, and we were substantially down in terms of staffing. We've been able to really hire back a large amount of positions that were empty, start to build back our bus drivers, changed in terms of the negotiations with all of the unions. Every one of those unions have come under contract in a timely period, which has added to our ability to continue to grow the workforce that's necessary to run the operation we expect. That was a lot of hard work, and that was from direction from the general manager and working with the board and the team to work with our employees to ensure that those contracts were signed, but more importantly, starting to bring people back on, particularly on the bus driver side, changing the way that both what it was paid, but more importantly, how the bus drivers were able to work every day and making that more favorable for building the workforce. So there's a lot of really positive things that have been going on. And the one other piece I'll make, I could, a number of other things, but I think that Just Ope really was up and running over the last couple of weeks. The MBTA Go, the new app. If anybody has not had a chance to sign on to that or spread the word about it, it really is giving up to the minute information about all modes of T service wherever you're at. If you looked at it today, where I'm at, the transportation building, I can call it up. It'll tell me what buses, commuter rail, and subway lines are available close by, and when the next bus is coming, when the next train is coming, what time the subway cars will be coming over the next hour and a half or more. That, I think, adds the kind of value for the ridership, so they can plan to take whatever mode that's needed in a timely manner, and then find out if there has been an issue. We had an issue a couple of weeks ago where there was a major fire along the corridor on the North Line going towards Newburyport, building right along the tracks. The line had to be shut down. With this app, you can, before you get out of the house, you can see what's going on and take alternative opportunities to get into work. So we're doing a lot of good work, but I think the underlying piece of what we've talked about, and I've had a chance to talk about over the last year and a half or more, is the substantial challenges we face, the financial challenges, the fiscal cliff related to our operating budget, the almost $25 billion in state of good repair that doesn't include the kind of investment we need to make and want to make on expanding and modernizing our system, particularly on the commuter rail, and more importantly, calling it the regional rail. Those opportunities we have a big challenge to meet the needs that we face. And that's going to take all of us, the ridership, the advisory board, our elected officials, local officials, to come together and really support the kind of effort we need to create the system that will continue to be the economic engine for the region, and create a 21st century system that will ensure that as we continue to progress, ensure that we have a really positive future for our region and for the state. It's not just our region, but the state at large really depends on a vibrant 21st century, safe, affordable, and convenient system. And that's the goal. That's all of our goal. And it's going to take all of us working together to make the case for that to the public, to the business community at large. So we have it on all of our shoulders to continue to advocate strongly for the kind of system we want. But I think the other piece of it is not only to advocate, but to talk about what do we get by really getting our hands around this and making the kind of investment that will build our system to what our riders want, but more importantly, what we all want. And I don't think we talk about it enough. And that's why I've laid out a little bit of the progress we're making, and the things that we should be laying out to the public is, what do we get? What is the return that we see by these kind of investments? Creating housing, economic investment along the corridors that have access to our MBTA system. I think that has to be an important piece of those discussions as well. And sometimes we lose sight of that, what's good, what's bad, and sometimes we focus on the challenges. we don't talk about what is this? Why are we all making this effort? What is it that we're putting the time and effort into to create? We're creating a better future, and we're creating the kind of return that sometimes we don't really reflect on or acknowledge. And I've talked about this to a number of people that are on this call, but if you haven't listened to the Central Artery, the Big Dig podcast, I would suggest you listen to it. It tells a story of a vision from the early to mid 1960s to depress the Central Artery, which turned into also building the Ted Williams Tunnel. And at the time, or at the end of it, the criticism or the pushback on the cost and what it took to make that happen. Although it was an engineering marvel when you think about what it did, but more importantly, what was the return on the dollar? The studies prior to building it reflected would maybe get 30 cents return on the dollar for those investments, both the tunnel and the Central Artery, depressing the Central Artery. And if you walk from Boston Garden to the Seaport District, and you walk along that greenway and you go to the North End for dinner and you see what's going on that came from that investment, you can't calculate the kind of return that we've gotten in terms of private investment and what it's done for the city and the region to have that public investment build an unbelievable private return. And that is the same kind of return I strongly believe that we will see if we can start to really get our hands around the real big challenges we face at the MBTA, but more importantly, to recognize the opportunity that by coming together, taking this on, this is a moment in time where we really can come together and start to build over the next few years the kind of system that will see the return for the kind of housing we need, the jobs that it will create, and to be the place where people want to come to, because we're eliminating the congestion that we have. We're building a system that's convenient, that allows people to not only get to work, but have a quality of life that they know they don't need to be in their car. They can get out and really experience the great place we all live with a system that works for everyone. So that's kind of my goal. And I know that everybody on this board that is involved in the advisory board cares about these issues and is a voice for a better future. And I look forward to working with the advisory board and all of you to help get to the vision we share. So with that, I'm happy to take some questions or have some feedback related to
Mr. Chairman, thank you for that. Before I open it up, maybe you could just comment. What do you think the feeling is? And I know we're waiting for the task force and Brian serving on that to see what the recommendations are going to be. But the relationship with the legislature is going to be so important. Do you have a sense of the appetite of the legislature, how helpful they're going to be? They recognize the importance, as you just articulated, what this
that.
means to the region.
I think the legislature in the past, and I know Brian, you've put together a history. I was in the legislature. I was elected in '94. So the legislature, if you look at the history over the last 20 plus years, has consistently supported the MBTA during really tough times. So I really believe that they understand the challenge, and within reason, within what they are able to do, I think that they're following what we're doing, and I'm pretty optimistic that we can at least start to move the ball down the field on the challenges we face. When I was in the legislature and beyond, there's money that was not coming in, and it's become contract assistance or other dollars that have supported our operation. I think the recognition of how important the T is to everything we do in the region. The legislature understands that. But I also think that the building the trust back, and Phil Eng has done a really good, and the team at the T has really worked to build that trust back. And at least from what I'm hearing, and I'm happy to hear what other people are feeling, but I think that perception of a dysfunctional operation has been gradually eroded, and that we are, I think, viewed in a more positive way from the public at large, and that reflects on the legislature and the administration in terms of the ability to support us. I can tell you, I've not heard one person's come up to me and said the new GM is doing a bad job. I get people all the time coming in and saying, gee, Phil Eng, he seems to be the right guy, or he's doing a good job, or seems like the T's doing better. Things are moving forward. I think the and then I'm making the commitment to, and this was a year ago, it was a lot of pushback. I'll go back to the slow zones. We're going to do some shutdowns, and they weren't as successful in the past, but the commitment was we're going to do shutdowns, and by doing those shutdowns, we're going to really address this slow zone problem that's really been impacting the ridership. And that commitment was made, and that commitment was delivered on. And I think that's what's coming down from the leadership at the MBTA, and Mayor, I think that's the kind of support that grows the support, because it shows that we are doing the things we're supposed to be doing, spending the dollars in a way that reflects the riders are the priority, and creating a safe environment and a system that works for the riders. So I think all of those pieces are an important part of what we need to do, and how we build the support and the collaboration and the partnerships, both with the legislature, but just as importantly with the public at large, local officials, and I think the business community coming together to support the efforts we're working on.
Thank you. Anybody have questions of Chairman McGee? Susan?
Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate your time. And I totally agree with you about Philling and his leadership. And I try to spread that word as much as I can. But two questions for you. So I'm in Lexington. And, you mentioned we need to grow back service, which I agree with, but how do we do that when we have cut service? So we said we want to grow ridership, but it's hard to grow ridership when we have cut service. There are people today that used to be able to take the service for some or all of their trips before COVID, and they can't because service has been cut.
Mhm.
And then relatedly, my second question, as I think it was Rob from Ashland said, Lexington, people are seeing that we have at least 1,000 housing units in the queue, which is great. Lexington wanted more housing even before 3A. But the challenge we have is that developers come to us wanting to build more parking than we would like, because they say we don't have the transit to support this housing. And if we build for cars, we not only congest our roads, we congest all of your roads in the region. So we really need more transit as soon as possible. Thank you.
That's a great question. Obviously, service has been, the workforce was down close to 2,000 employees. Just getting the system running every day was a real challenge with that. And going back to the bus drivers, starting to build that workforce up to allow us to start getting back to where the service was pre-pandemic has been a challenge, but it's definitely part of the important pieces of moving forward. It's legitimate. How can you take advantage of the system when you can't get there? So so that, like I said, we're facing really substantial challenges. I do think we're making progress, but there's definitely a long way to go. I think the first step was clearly, particularly with the FTA and the safety issues that were laid out in front of us. The subway system in particular was really had to be addressed, and we've done that. So ordering new buses. I've had a chance to get out and see the facility in Quincy that's really moving along dramatically in terms of the electric buses, the electric bus maintenance facility that's out there. So I think that's a discussion we need to continue to have. How do we bring back the service for places like Lexington that don't have the access to it right now? And you're right. I've always said that you may never take a bus, train, or subway, but if you're driving every day and everybody else can't get on those services, we're all sitting in gridlock. And the impact for all of us, we see it every day on the road. So we need to get back to where we were, and we're moving in that direction, but there's definitely more to go. And I think that discussion needs to continue. I'm glad you brought it up. I know it's not the first point I've heard. I know that discussion is going on what's happening in Lexington and in other places. Bus on the 15th, the new bus network first phase is happening with that's going to be happening related to some of the increased bus drivers we have in making sure the workforce is there. So it's on our radar screen, and we can't lose sight of that. And I think I answered your second question. You're right. This impacts us all, whether you're ever going to take the system or not. We have, if not the second worst congestion in the country. And I think we're in the top 10 in the world. So we need to look to this investment. And that's where the task force is really going to be important in our ability to continue to advocate and build a stronger consensus about a larger investment into the system to build back the service to where it was, and then to continue to grow it so more people can have the opportunity to take advantage of it.
Okay, next up, I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
I was going to say, I know that doesn't bring buses back to Lexington today, but it's definitely part of the broader discussion.
Okay, Leonard from Arlington.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, former Senator McGee. So you mentioned that that for the big dig, that people thought that the return on the dollar would be about 30 cents, and you feel that it's much bigger, but we can't measure that. And I'm wondering if it's just inherently impossible to measure that, because I think it'd be good if we could get a sense of how to measure that, because I think that we need to sell, investment in the entire transportation network, to the public, and the best way to do that is to give them a decent sense, of what the return on the investment would be. So unless you think it's inherently impossible to do that, do you think how we go about doing that? Because I think it's important to be able to justify the investment to the public. Thank you.
I think it's a great question and a great point. I think it's up to all of I haven't got my hands around but the best way to do that, but A Better City put out a report. Time goes by, a few years ago. I think the at the time the T was, I'm just throwing the numbers out there, but we spent about $3.5 billion on the T. The economic return was 11 or 12 billion. So that study, or that kind of reflection on what the T means, has been done in the past. I think we need to continue that, and I don't think it should be a one-time thing. It should be an ongoing discussion. And it's a good question. How do we continue to have that discussion? My point on the big dig was we couldn't calculate that, but we can definitely calculate what has happened since that time. That there's been a way more dollars have been invested, tens of billions of dollars more. If you look at the kind of investment, both in jobs and housing, in economic, just in real estate, that has happened since the Central Artery project was completed. That happens every day with the MBTA. Even with the system today, the return on our dollar for what we make is well beyond what we're paying every year for the system. So we're working to figure out what is the appropriate approach on that. Open to discussions on how we can do that. I do think we could do it in-house, but I think it's probably more impactful if we have an outside, well-respected kind of recognition of that, and reflective of the dollars, that then we can take that information and continue to have that broader discussion about what the return is. And I said this at an event last week. It's sometimes the public doesn't understand all that goes into what the train, just running of the train or the bus or the subway is today. It takes a lot to do that. And but they just want to know, is the bus going to be there for me today? How am I going to get to work? Sometimes we don't, and then we take it for granted when it's working well, without understanding what else is that bringing to us every day. It's bringing more than just getting us where we want to be. It's bringing a quality of life and an economic vitality and vibrancy that we wouldn't have if it wasn't here. And that is probably a broader part of the discussion. Maybe I'm going a little off topic here, but I think your point's really well taken. And we need to have that discussion about what do we gain by having a 21st century system? What are we gaining today with the system we have? A lot. But what will we gain if we really get a system that we're all trying to get to? And so open to suggestions on how we can build that broader discussion, but there is definitely data out there that reflects what was going on a few years ago. And I think those numbers are real or could be larger.
Thank you.
Joe from Norwood.
Thank you. Chairman, you actually answered my first question, which Susan asked you. We've had some service cuts to our single bus line. We're expecting maybe a few more through the Better Bus Project, but you answered that thoroughly. My second question is less serious. I'm curious to see how one can obtain a commuter rail lapel pin that you're wearing right now.
I will look into that. I get that asked all the time, but I will talk to the team and see if some of those can be made available. But it also says, you can't see it, but it says Lynn on the bottom of it. That was when the Lynn station was reopened 9 months ahead of time, which was also, I live in Lynn, was a big step forward to at least have that station reopened prior, a lot sooner than we anticipated. But that is and you're not the only one. So maybe it's something we have to take a look at to make sure everybody's wearing these. That's a message in itself, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the question.
Bruce from Harvard.
Thank you, and well, thanks for the presentation. I have to say, my most recent ride on the Red Line was half the time to get from the commuter rail to Park Street. It was amazing. Reminds me of 10 years ago, and even better. To Brian, I'll sound a little like a broken record, so I apologize. For about 2 years, I've raised the issue for our community of can we deal with the shortage of parking at Littleton 495 and then the broken charging stations. It's been about 2 years. We're now post-COVID filling the parking lot again after the second morning train. So it's a really limiting factor on ridership. It's an investment that doesn't require more buses. And it's been challenging, I think, with the budget and everything, but there's space there. It would seem there's no reason it couldn't be improved.
That's I don't know the specifics of the location. If Brian or you can get me the specifics, and so I at least can understand what the location looks like and what opportunity they might be there.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, it's a bit of a regional boarding station. It's where Route 2 hits 495, and so it attracts a lot of people, and that's great. But we're kind of getting, before COVID, it was at capacity. If you wanted to take a train after 7 in the morning, you couldn't park there.
Is it right off? Is it right off of Route 2, Route 490?
Exactly. It's right at that. It's right at that exit.
Okay. And I know, Brian, if you want to get me some information on that, I can at least get up to speed on what's happening there. But I appreciate the question and the thoughts on how we improve service.
That's great. Thanks.
Brad from Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. Good morning, Chair. Really appreciate you taking the time to be here. This is such an important regional collaboration space, and I'm delighted to see the great attendance. And I do really think that it's worth taking a tip of the cap to Brian and to Hannah at the staff who have been working hard to increase the visibility, the accountability, and the impact of the advisory board. So thank you for prioritizing it, and please continue to use this space and all of us as force multipliers for you, for the board, for the staff. But similar to that, Chair, I'd like to highlight the importance of other similar regional convening spaces. The regional planning associations, the MPOs in particular, represent an untapped resource in your reform mission, in the general manager's reform mission, as we continue to try to build a statewide coalition to get the sustainable, equitable investment we need in our transit system. And I don't limit that to the MBTA. I want to kind of, again, applaud the investments that we've all made in our RTAs and recognize that when we bring the right folks together in context-specific solutions and dialogue like this, we can build the coalitions needed to get through our fiscal cliff and the next challenges ahead. So please continue to use the municipalities and the regional bodies to help you amplify the message and deliver the same success on regional rail and on bus as we've done on the subway system and the track improvement plan. Thank you.
The point's well taken. Rich Davey used to say when he was the GM that the T is the largest of the regional transit authorities. So it's an important point, and we really are interconnected across. This isn't just the greater Boston area. The T really impacts a broader range in the Commonwealth, and the regional transit authorities are obviously a key piece of both service they provide in their areas, as well as what kind of interconnections can we continue to build between the different RTAs and the T itself. There's a lot of growth happening, and I think, and again, additional opportunity. And I look forward to continuing this discussion in a broader way. I also sit on the MassDOT board. I'm going to stay on the MassDOT board because I do think that the interconnectivity between what we do at the MBTA and the rest of the state in terms of MassDOT, regional transit, and other opportunities is really important to have that link. And I look forward to having these discussions as in a broader way. people that will listen, I'm happy to get a chance to talk. But thanks for the question and points well taken.
Let's see. Matthew from Boston.
Hi, Matthew Peterson. I'm a planner at the Transportation Department here in Boston. I want to thank you for your presentation. I also wanted to echo some of the things that Susan said about, really emphasizing the importance of local bus service and connecting bus service within our communities. In Boston, we continue to invest in, street changes and changes to our roadways to make MBTA service work better. We continue to work and, to change our course when that doesn't work out, but really we're deeply invested in making sure that the MBTA's bus network is a success. I think one of the things that we're very interested in seeing from the T in terms of the bus network is a focus on really delivering the same kind of operational consistency and focus on getting it right and managing headways and managing the service to the same degree that we do on the subway system and the rapid transit system, the same kind of attention to detail from a dispatching perspective that we do see on the rail network. And so I think that's something that we're certainly, I know we've seen some steps in the right direction recently from the T around, thing, but I think it's something where bus does sometimes get short shrift from a sort of both capital needs and kind of operational policy attention perspective. And I think it's something that, from the city of Boston's perspective is really important to making sure that when we do deliver, say, a transit priority corridor or, are working on optimizing signals or reallocating space on the roadway for buses, that we make sure that the operations kind of follow that and are able to not just deliver 3 buses in a row going twice as fast, but that those service being allocated efficiently. And so I think improvements to operations and kind of making sure that those, people make their connections, that transfers that are being increased as bus network redesign rolls out, that there are more transfers, that those transfers work well, and that the timing and operations of service are run efficiently. I think that's something we're interested in kind of seeing more improvements on kind of as we kind of move forward into this kind of next year beyond the track improvement program.
Thank you for that. The bus network redesign, as I said, we're all familiar with as well, starting on the 15th. But pieces of that 15-minute headway, starting to really focus more clearly on the opportunity for buses is a really important piece. The big challenge has been we really couldn't fill the bus driver positions. That's changing, and the contract has really made a difference, which allows us to really start to focus more clearly on the buses, the current bus system, but how can we improve it and make it better? And obviously the dedicated lanes make a substantial difference in terms of people's utilizing the buses and how important it is. So that point's really well taken. It really is. It's a big part of what we do, and sometimes it doesn't get talked about as much, but so many people depend on that to get to where they need to be. So it is. I'm glad you brought it up.
Duncan from Needham.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Chairman, for joining us. Real question, just being sort of on the portion of the commuter rail system that is not defined ultimately as kind of the high frequency regional rail, totally electrified. It's our understanding that there are at least some forms of electrification that may be possible for us. And I'm just wondering where, what the timetable is and sort of what the framework might be for some of the sort of more outlying or less heavily traveled lines, seeing some prospect for electrification.
Well, it's a great question. And as part of the Commuter Rail Coalition that was meeting pretty regularly pre-pandemic, and was a lot of discussion about it. And the former board, Fiscal Management Control Board, actually made with pretty much, I think, unanimous consensus across the commuter rail region to embrace a longer vision of regional rail electrification. Obviously, going to take time and money, but the Fairmont line, I think the first piece of that bigger puzzle of creating a system that works across the system. I mean, the frequency may be a little different, but I think the long-term vision is creating the system that works for everyone, and the infrastructure being there with the commuter rail system now. How can we take advantage of that infrastructure, make it work better for everyone? The battery electric units that'll be coming in the next couple of years that we approved at one of the last meeting or two. and running it on the Fairmont line is kind of taking on a little bit of that. Battery electric means if there's some catenary in some places, you're able to get and then the battery, utilizing the battery space where you can't really get catenary in easily. This is the first chance to see how that will work, how the technology will work, and start to build on that. Again, I said living in Lynn, but really looking at the opportunity for that corridor, which was part of that first phase that was rolled out by the Fiscal Management Control Board a few years ago. But I think the positive piece of this, it doesn't address your question directly, but is starting to prove that this is where we want to go and that it's going to work and it's going to improve service so that we can build on that. The other piece is we just approved an additional amount of double-decker rail cars that will be coming over the next 2 or 3 years to completely get the fleet into a double deck fleet with all of the single level cars will be gone. Question I asked during that, and I know others have asked that, are these units we're buying able to be run without diesel? And those can be run on electric locomotives. So the opportunity to start to improve service with better brand new equipment, really brand new two-tier vehicles over the next, as we're going to replace the fleet, is also an ability for us to look how can we improve service beyond the first phases of what's going to be. Again, I strongly believe in this, a future regional rail electrified system that will work for all of us. And when we talk about the challenges for housing, by creating this kind of a system, and obviously it's going to take time, but it's going to create the opportunity for the housing that we need in the state to be created along corridors that maybe aren't as utilized right now, but as time goes on and we improve and move in that direction with the kind of resources we're hoping to build on, that's the kind of system we see as the future, that I see as the future. I think we all do, and that's been laid out pretty clearly. So it's not answering your question about today, but we are starting to actually move in that direction. And the SIP that is a bit challenged because of the limited by resources, is putting pieces in place to really start to move the ball down the field a little bit on a regional rail system that is electrified, or with technology over the next few years could be more battery electric. So we're trying to figure out what the right approach is to start to move forward on a regional rail system. I really believe that's the future for the Commonwealth. The new or expansion is making that system work better, and it's
Okay.
one of the challenges.
Thanks so much. Okay.
One of the challenges, but just as important, one of the opportunities. And I do think that the more that we continue to come together and talk about what we want and the vision we have, and to build that kind of ability to grow the resources, allows us to make more progress than where we're at right now. And that's I think what I talked about and we talked about earlier in the meeting. But thank you for bringing that up.
Pushing up against the time. We'll take one more question from Alan from Brockton.
Thank you.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for joining us. It's been interesting listening. I'm from Brockton, and we're interested, similar to what others have said, in restoring services that we had pre-COVID. Where the Brockton line is also the line that's being extended to New Bedford and Fall River. So I got kind of two questions and looking for some assistance and some advice from you on how to proceed. Would like to know just what the service levels will be once Fall River, New Bedford open. And the second, I just want to note that Brockton, like Lynn and Quincy, are among the largest cities that are located within the MBTA district outside the city of Boston. In fact, we have 3 commuter rail stations, and historically, there's more boardings in those 3 stations within the city of Brockton than in any other community outside of Boston. So we really rely on the commuter rail and have for the nearly 30 years that line has been reopened. But it's still running the kind of post-COVID hourly headway. And what I'm getting at, my connection to the mayor's office because she uses the line. There's some crowding returning, so that's good. People are coming back to work. There's a lot of demand for people to stop the hybrid work practices and come into the city. The Southeast Expressway is burdened all day long, as I'm sure you've heard. So the assistance I'm looking for and the advice is how do we get back to where we were pre-COVID? At least two trips in a peak hour rather than one. And I suspect that once they open the line to South Coast Rail, that might be helpful because there'll be more demand along the Old Colony line, the Millborough branch that will be extended. So that's my plea. How do we get the service back? And again, like Lynn in Quincy, we're a minority community, high minority population. In fact, we're a minority majority community and really need the service levels improved. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. I don't, I'm not sure exactly what the service is going to look like. We're still in the process of starting up the Fall River and New Bedford South Coast Rail service. If I'll take a look at the service, if you can either get me or Brian, get me some information related to pre and post pandemic service on Brockton, I can at least find out more details on what that impact has been or what the future holds. I'm anticipating that with the South Coast Rail service, there's going to be more interest along that corridor as well, with hopefully more opportunity. That was a major investment to create that. So, but those over the next few months, that service will be coming into play, and there'll be more clear cut on what the what kind of service will be available and what kind of equipment is there. I can't answer that question. I don't have the numbers directly, but I'm happy to get more information.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate you taking the time. Appreciate all your efforts for many, many years working for the people of Commonwealth, and look forward to you leading the way on the solutions and getting the legislature to see the wisdom and the importance of the T for the region. So thanks for joining us, and I'll see you next week at the Board of Directors meeting.
See you at the Board of Directors. Thanks everyone for listening, and thanks for the great questions. Look forward to working together moving forward. Thank you.
Brian?
Thank you, sir. And thank you, Chairman McGee. We appreciate all you do for us and for the Commonwealth, as was said. Very quickly moving on, because we are running short of time. I think hopefully you can see what's on the screen. So we were supposed to do officers and committees and committee chairs and committee charges today. I've asked the mayor if we could hold this until our next meeting because I'm still trying to actively recruit for a few positions. So you can see here Colette O'Frank, who has been our treasurer for many years and has done an amazing job, as chair, has taken over the chair of her select board and is running out of bandwidth. And so she's asked if someone could step up to the role of treasurer and budget and audit committee chair. We are also continuing to look for a bylaw committee chair. Mike Dutton, who was our chair there, has moved out of the district. The capital budget oversight committee, Suzanne Rasmussen, has moved on to a different role in Cambridge, and so we're looking for someone to take on that committee. And there's also some vacancies on the three committees you see there. So I asked the mayor if we could hold this. He agreed, thankfully. And the question really is, we do most of our work in committees, as folks know. And I think folks understand that we never meet for more than 1 hour. It's always on Zoom. And I endeavor to make your time be useful when you're so great, when you're so gracious to give it to me. So if folks are interested, please let me know. I would greatly appreciate if folks could step up. Government in Massachusetts runs on volunteerism, which is a weird way to do it, but it's what we do, and I know everyone does a ton, and so that is my request. So please let me know, and thank you.
Thank you for
Can we
that,
move on to the
Brian.
next
So,
item, sir?
yeah, so folks, give it some thought. As been said earlier in the meeting and other times, the advisory board has never been more engaged, and that happens because of the interest and the commitment made by the members. and certainly with Brian's leadership and Hannah and the team, it really has become an organization that is respected in the region, and I know has great respect from our legislature as well. So thank you to Brian and the team. So anyone, if you could think about that, if you can help out, let Brian know. Our next full advisory board meeting is going to be February 5th at 10 o'clock a.m. If you can put that in your calendars. Brian, any other business?
Very quickly, yes, sir. And sorry, just a quick reminder, if you have not yet done so, please put your name and your community in the chat for the minutes and the record. That would be very helpful. So the internal budget, this is the budget that allows me to work and everyone there. The Budget and Audit Committee discussed this recently, and there was no objection to it. I'm happy to go through this in greater detail. I'm also happy to
Hey,
answer
Brian,
any
can you just
questions.
magnify it? Oh, good. Thank you.
There you go. I mean, the thing that's different this year that I'm happy to report is that the Bar Foundation is giving us a $100,000 grant effective January 7th, 2025 for 1 year. And that is to allow us to continue to do the outreach work that we've been doing. As I mentioned earlier, heretofore we visited 40 communities in their city and town halls. And that work will continue in 2025. To get the name and the work of the advisory board out there, and B, to lobby folks, or I should say, encourage folks to contact their legislators to help us sort of get a legislative solution for the MBTA in 2025 and 2026 in the next session. The Bar Foundation heard about the work we were doing and very graciously decided that it deserved to continue. And that is very helpful because that will allow us to not only fund the 3 employees, but also to rebuild back our reserve, which is something that we strive to do in our financial policy. So good news. So as you can see, the bottom line is with this Bar Foundation grants, we're projecting a $67,000 surplus for calendar year 25. That money will also flow into the strategic reserve, which we are trying to build back. And so folks might remember we spent down sort of for the last 3 years. We've been, as part of a plan, we've been spending a little more than we've had each fiscal year, each calendar year. To do things like build back the brand of the advisory board. That has been largely successful. I think it's been very successful, and that has allowed us to sort of get to this point where we will have a surplus, and then a year from now, based on where the legislature is, we will reevaluate what our needs are. So that will allow us to probably get back under the spending where we sort of need to be just based on what we get from assessments. So good news on that front. And everything else is more or less status quo continued with some additions for additional travel, meetings. And we're going to go to MMA, the Connect 350 next month. Look forward to seeing hopefully a lot of you there. And there's an APTA, American Public Transportation Association meeting in Boston next fall that we plan to attend as well. So that is a great way to make connections outside of the region with our national partners. So good news, balanced budget, good news, additional revenue, and request that you folks approve this so that we can allow ourselves to make payments in 2025.
The Mary Medford had a question. Mary, are you there?
Yes. Thank you. I'll
Go
move
ahead.
approval. I just maybe at the next meeting we can see a breakdown of the 100,000, how the borrow grant will be implemented.
Sure. I
Okay.
don't think I have it on here.
I'll second that motion.
Because you have a motion second to approve with the caveat that Brian will get back to everybody with more detail on how the grant will be spent. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
You guys have it. I assume, Brian, you applied for that grant, so thank you for your efforts in that regard. I don't think we have
And
any other business.
one
go ahead,
final
Brian.
thing, sir. Just again, this is sort of late breaking. We got our 2023 audit Back, it is clean, and I'm very proud of that. And again, the Budget and Audit Committee has discussed this. They are formulating their response. This was actually for 2022 and 2023 calendar years. It's clean. They found no findings. They have a few suggestions around procedural improvements, which we welcome. And again, the Budget and Audit Committee is finalizing its response to this. We are in the process of figuring out who will do our 2024 budget, excuse me, audit. But again, good news that none of this is, there's no major findings. There's no minor findings. There's no findings. So no findings, no news is good news when it comes to audits. So I'm happy to report that, sir. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Again, remind everyone, February 5th, 10 o'clock is our next advisory board meeting. And I'd suggest at that point that we will have the report, hopefully, from the task force. We may have some more input from the MBTA Board of Directors on how we're going to proceed with the legislature. And I know the members of this board are all interested, so that we will have the appropriate talking points, if you will, go back to our communities and begin to be part of that collaborative effort to sell the package that needs to go to the state legislature in order to improve our system, protect our system going forward. I see Susan has her hand up.
Yeah, just a final comment. So I've been thinking about this call to action that State Rep Michelle Socolo gave yesterday at the end of the forum we held here. And she was saying that representatives, our legislators often aren't hearing from people about transit. So, we obviously all care about it here, but I think the more we can all do to get all of our local leaders and our residents to speak out to our legislators on the need to support transit, I think that's just really critical. I mean, so just wanted to stress that. Thanks.
I agree with that. And I'd further add to that I plan on presenting to the city council in the early quarter next year, specifically on the MBTA. It's not only important to the council, but a lot of the towns, it's on cable. People tune into it. They get a sense of it. So I'd suggest every delegate here to the advisory board, some are elected, some are appointed, to speak to your bodies to get an agenda item on there to talk about it so that we can get it out there. And then that helps to, in a positive way, put a little pressure on our legislators to let them know how important this issue is to each of the communities. So thank you for that, Susan.
Sir, if I might just quickly
ahead, Brian.
respond. So as we've been visiting the 40 plus communities, we've been providing draft resolutions, drafts of letters, et cetera, et cetera. I'll send that to everybody today so that everyone has that. There's a whole toolkit and lots of materials with lots of information that if you so choose to do a draft letter or a draft resolution or a town meeting resolution, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, you'll have something. So look for that from me today.
That'll be helpful, but I'm assuming that the governor's going to have some plans once that task force finished, Brian. It'd be nice to have that information before we present locally, but that's a good start. So thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
Okay, seeing no other business before us, I certainly want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, Happy Holidays. Wish everybody a new year filled with good health and certainly abundant blessings, and appreciate everybody's efforts here. So with that, I'd accept a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Bye.